In Ohio, call 1-800-582-1701. If you're calling out of state, the number to call is 1-800-543-0471. And in Cincinnati, call 749-3420. And now, once again, here's Bob Trumpy.
Sports Talk here on Radio 7 on WLW. As I told you before the program started, we have a gentleman here in town passing through on his way to Columbus who I believe a lot of you know about but don't know much about his sport. He's one of these guys that flexes his muscles and stands up there and they take pictures and also tries for Mr. Olympia, which I believe he just won not too long ago. But one of the gentlemen who back maybe 5 or 6 years ago put bodybuilding on the map almost personally. I believe his nickname for a while was the Oak. His name is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and welcome to Cincinnati.
Thank you very much. I think that you were one of the very first guys that pronounced my last name right.
Well, you have to understand, though, I played professional football, so I had to deal with Jan Stenerud, Anthony Munoz, Horst Muhlmann.
Oh, my God.
So Schwarzenegger is not really that bad. What nationality is that?
Austrian. I was born in Austria, and then 12 years ago, I moved to America.
And am I correct? May I call you Arnold, or do you have a nickname? Or
Arnold is fine.
Arnold, okay. You are one of the first guys to really get the entire world turned on to bodybuilding. I mean, there are a lot of people before you, and there have been a lot of people since, but you made it, I believe, with a movie called Pumping Iron.
Right.
You made it really famous.
Well, it was a lot of different things that really helped, like the film Pumping Iron, like the book Pumping Iron, and also the media has really handled it very positively in the last 5 years. But I think it was also because I was very publicity oriented. I knew that in order to make the sport really popular, you have to go out and do interviews and get stories in Newsweek, Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated, and also make sure that the events from that point on are covered by ABC, Wide World of Sports, or CBS, or so on.
Or NBC.
Or NBC. So any of those things, it is very important that the network gets involved with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so now all the major events are covered. We have been in all the major magazines and newspapers and so on. So that's why, thanks to the media's help again, the sport became a very recognized sport and also accepted sport in America. It was accepted in Europe, and bodybuilding was accepted as an official sport since 1970 by the International Sports Assembly of Amateur Sports.
Why is it not included in the Olympics? Wouldn't that be one of the purest forms of amateur athletics, bodybuilding?
Well, it became already an Olympic sport, a recognized Olympic sport, but not a participative sport. So first you go through all kinds of stages in order to get into the Olympics. First you have to be recognized by the Olympic board. Then you will be tried out. Like, for instance, in 1984, they are suggesting now that surfing and bodybuilding will be introduced into the Olympics just to see how it will work. Then they will have a vote on that, and then maybe in 1988 it will go in as a permanent sport, or they kick you out. If they don't like it, they kick you out.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go through all kinds of steps, and it was a hard job to do it. It takes sometimes a long time to make a sport go through all those channels and be, accepted.
Yeah. What got you started in bodybuilding? Did somebody kick sand in your face?
Well, we don't have that much sand in Austria, so it was probably snow that they kicked in my face. But I mean, it wasn't that. It was like I was a soccer player on an Austrian team in a junior league, and we started getting introduced to weight training at that time, to do once or twice a week some squats with some weights to strengthen our legs. And that's how I saw the first time a weightlifting room. And I got hooked on it. I loved the weight training, or the idea of being strong and getting muscular and all those things. And not long after that, made up my mind that I want to really go all the way out and become Mr. Universe and win all those titles. So one thing led to the other. Then the winning of contests got me to America, and got me then to do films and producing the world championships in bodybuilding, writing books and all those things. So it was just a snowballing kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. That has also led to things like doing guest shots on the Johnny Carson show and also
Yeah,
with
I
Merv
did.
Griffin.
Right, I
And
did.
most recently, am I not mistaken, a movie with Lonnie Anderson?
Yes, I did
For the
a
first time
film.
in my life, I'm considering taking up bodybuilding with the hopes of doing a movie with Lonnie Anderson.
I believe that. I tell you, it was really a fun thing to do. You know, to do
I would
film.
imagine.
Yes, she was a great-looking girl and a very
Still is.
yes. And but at the time when I shot, I mean, I haven't seen her since. But she was great-looking then, and she probably is still. And
What was the
very good actress and very intelligent woman.
What was the premise of this movie? Was
Well,
it
it was it's called the Jane Mansfield Story, and it's going to be on air on the 29th of October this month, end of this month, and the film is basically about Jane Mansfield and her married life with Mickey Haggerty, which I played in the film, and just about the ups and downs of the career and the drama of the career and how she died and all those things. It's a very interesting story, and I learned a lot about Jane Mansfield by doing this film. You know.
Was Mickey Hargitay a weightlifter?
He was a weightlifter and a bodybuilder, and has won the Mr. Universe contest in 1956, and is still alive and is in Hollywood now, and became since then a big real estate tycoon, you know, and is still working out and all that. But it was a really interesting life for him and very tragic life, actually, you know.
How tall are you, Arnold?
6'2".
How much do you weigh?
I weigh now 223 or 224, but at the competition just 3 weeks ago, I weighed almost 230.
230.
Yeah.
The size of biceps.
I don't know. I haven't had a tape measure in my hand for a long time. I would guess that at the time of the competition, I had around 21-inch arms, and my chest was around 57 inches and so on. You know, my body weight 230.
And waist, just to make
I
everyone
don't-
feel bad.
33 or 34, I guess.
All right. And from what I understand from a little bit of information that I got here on you, from a Mr. Neustadt, was that you kind of snuck up on everybody in a competition down in Australia, that they didn't realize that you were going to enter the Mr. Olympia,
yes.
and you showed up there and blew everybody off the stage.
Right.
And won it for how many
the
times?
seventh time, yeah. Well, what happened was I around 10 weeks ago, which was around 8 weeks before the competition, actually, the director of the film that I'm going to do next and just started doing, Conan the Barbarian, is the name of it.
Run that by me again.
Conan the Barbarian.
This guy.
which
This
is
guy.
right, exactly.
That guy right
Yeah,
there.
which is a very heroic guy, and it's a fantasy film. It's a very popular comic book character. They said to me that for the first two scenes in the film, which we are shooting on October 10th, I should weigh around 230 pounds. Can I get up there with the body weight that quick? So I said, sure, I can. You know, I have enough control over the body that I can do that. So I gained this weight within a short period of time and got in super shape. And the more I got in shape and the closer I got to that date, people said, well, listen, the contest, the Mr. Olympia contest is on October 4th. Why don't you enter that competition? And I said, no, I'm retired from bodybuilding competition, forget it, no, this and that. And one day I just woke up with that in mind. Yes, maybe I should compete. And this was 14 days before the contest. But then I decided that I shouldn't really tell anybody about this decision because maybe some people don't go then. You know, because that was the problem in 75, that people just didn't want to compete anymore because they always thought that I would win and there was no chance for them to win. So I snuck over there. I was on a list of the judges to judge the Mr. Olympia contest, but not in there as a competitor. So the night before the competition, I finally called the International Federation of Bodybuilding, the headquarters over there, and called the president, and I said, listen, you should put me on the judging sheets now as a competitor because I'm competing tomorrow. And then it was announced to all the rest of the competitors, and that, of course, caused a lot of sleepless nights over there amongst those guys. And I competed the next day and won, which was a very close contest as far as I was concerned, because the standard of bodybuilding has gone up in the last 5 years tremendously.
Why?
It's like in every sport that the technology is so much better. The better machines are around. Then bodybuilders know much more about nutrition and food supplements now. They know much more about posing and how to use the music, for instance. Things have changed, and I wasn't really aware of that, although I've been staging the World Championships every year, like we will again this year. on November 1st in Columbus, Ohio. We will have the professional Mr. Universe contest there again, and I'm one of the producers. But I've seen those events as a producer, but I haven't been there on stage with the guys for 5 years, and all of a sudden I realized when I was there that it is a different ballgame, that it is tougher to compete, and it was a very close competition.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that a few years ago, bodybuilders it was commonplace for them to almost survive on anabolic steroids. Is that still, is that still evident in bodybuilding, or am I mistaken in that assumption?
No, I mean, you're partially mistaken, because it was only a drug used very temporarily before competition. But it is, I think it's fading out now. I mean, I think in general, drugs in sports.
And especially for bodybuilding.
Right.
Then what makes
well,
you...
football players, I mean, football
Don't
players...
bring up football players when I talk about drugs now.
Wait a minute,
I'm
no, but I mean, football players, weightlifters, wrestlers, I mean, everybody has been using it, and the ideal thing is now to get away from it, because it's only a very temporary thing, drugs, and it has side effects, and I think people should not use it. And the idea now is to work, and that's what my seminars are all about, is to work on the psychology of sports, which is much more permanent, to really work on your mind and make that strong, on self-hypnosis and on positive thinking and all those things, because that will create a champion on a much more permanent basis than drugs.
Yeah. How many hours a day, when you work out towards being Mr. Olympia, how many hours a day do you work out?
I worked out before the competition now, I would say around 4 hours a day. I worked out during the year maybe an hour a day with weights. But it really, working out, there's the different kind of workouts I do. I mean, I go from running a half hour to working out an hour with weights, and then doing stretching exercises, and then I do all my training with the sword for this new film and so on.
With the sword?
Yeah, because there's a lot of sword fighting in there, with heavy swords and so on. So you
is this guy kind of like Atlas?
No, it's like the films about the Huns and about the Vikings and stuff like that. It's very much like that, but it's a totally different time. It's a time of when Atlantis existed.
Yeah. Interesting. You and Lou Ferrigno are the two guys who apparently have made the best deal out of your bodybuilding. Why only the two of you? Why are there not other bodybuilders in situations like you? And Lou Ferrigno, by the by, is the Incredible Hulk at 6'5" and about 275.
Right. Well, there are a lot of bodybuilders that are very successful in other directions. The only thing is that sometimes you don't hear as much about them as of Lou Ferrigno and myself. For instance, Franco Colombo. He's one of the short guys in bodybuilding, and he has won the Mr. Olympia contest in 1976. He has done a tremendous amount of commercials, the Vitalis commercials and so on. He has done films and commercials in Europe. He has become a doctor in chiropractic and became very successful in with his chiropractic practice, wrote 6 books already and so on. So there are other guys that are extremely successful, or like Frank Zane, for instance, is very successful, who won the Mr. Olympia contest for the last 3 years. He has written books already and has done a lot of things. So I think there's quite a few guys that go outside of that bodybuilding thing and try to make a living or a lot of money outside, and also be more versatile.
Yeah. Do you find too that because of the popularity that the sport has gained because of you and Franco Colombo and a guy named what was I'm thinking his last name was Pearl, was it Jim?
Bill Pearl.
Bill Pearl.
Yeah.
Supposedly 8 or 10 years ago, the man with the biggest arms in the world. Do you find a lot more acceptance of your sport, or is it really called a sport? Yeah, I guess it's a sport.
It is called a sport, and there's the acceptance is incredible now. I mean, because there are very few people now that will deny the fact that it is one of the most popular activities to do. It is just adopted by every athlete. If it is in decathlon or football or in tennis, everybody is doing bodybuilding. They are doing it for a different reason, I mean, the professional bodybuilder does it to win the competitions, but then bodybuilding goes on into other areas. If it is rehabilitation after operations, or if it is for other sports, or if it is for weight reduction, or for slowing down the aging process, or whatever it is. And
do you feel it does that?
Oh, definitely. I think you feel much more energetic. I mean, I feel now much better physically than I did 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. How old are you now?
33.
33.
Yeah, and people that are competing with the age of 50. And I think that the most important thing is that everybody does a little bit of it. You don't have to go as far as we do, but I think 3 times a week for 20 or 30 minutes will be good for everybody. And women are the ones that are really
That's
now
amazing.
getting into that.
That's amazing. They had that article in Sports Illustrated.
Right,
That's
yes.
incredible.
Yeah, women are becoming very, very popular. It becomes a very popular thing amongst women. And they had this year already the first Miss Olympia competition. And then, of course, Lisa Lyon has done a good job in promoting female bodybuilding, and she's writing a book now. And there are so many female gym members now all over America, more so than almost men. And when I came out, for instance, with my book, Arnold's Body Shaping for Women, that outsold now the first book that I wrote, which was for men. And I thought that the woman's book maybe would be half the sales as the first book, the man's book, but it was wrong. I mean, there's an enormous amount of women training with weights now.
Yeah. There are a lot of old wives' tales. I think they're old wives' tales about bodybuilders like yourself that at a certain age everything falls. And you hear a lot of people mention that oh, what's going to happen to him in 5 or 10 years when he quits working out? All this stuff is just going to hang off of him like I don't know, a bad fitting outfit or something. What does happen when you retired for a number of years? What did happen to the musculature?
I never stopped, so I'm not really a good example. What I did was I slowed down with the amount of weights I used and the amount of hours I put in. Like I said, I only trained during this last 5 years 1 hour a day. But if somebody would stop and not use any weights at all anymore, the body would reduce a certain amount in size and in body weight. You will just the whole thing will just shrink, because the body does not use then the big muscles anymore to protect itself from the heavy weights, because muscles are kind of like calluses on your hands. It's a protection so you don't injure yourself. That's why you build strong tendons and strong muscles. So if you don't use any heavy weights anymore, or any weights at all, then it will decrease a certain percentage, and that will be it. It will not turn to fat. The only way your fat cells will increase in size is if you will feed them fat. If you would eat high carbohydrate and high calorie foods, then you will get fat. And it happens a lot of times to a lot of athletes when they stop competing, because when you compete, let's say you play football, for instance, you burn off thousands of calories on a football field, or if you play basketball or baseball or so. Then when you stop, therefore you eat a lot, but then when you stop training that hard, you continue eating the same amount, then there's no way of burning it off anymore, and that's why you get overweight and you get fat. So you just have to slow down with your eating too.
Don't look at me like that, Aaron. Don't look at me like that.
You look very muscular and very trim, so you stayed in shape. So
all right,
no
I'll settle
problem.
for. I've only been retired for 3 years though, so that helps.
Well,
that helps a
lot of
little bit.
People sometimes go out of shape quickly.
Yeah. Do you have to have a very special diet in order to have the definition and the muscles when you pose that you really require to be a Mr. Olympia?
Yes, you have to go a short time before the competition, like a month before, on a very strict diet, which means that if the average person carries 20% of body fat, let's assume, that's what the average is, the bodybuilder should have around 6 to 7% body fat. So what you have to do is you have to step up the training, train twice a day, maybe 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night, and then also cut down the carbohydrate and calorie intake. And it has to get down to such a limit that you cannot even drink a glass of wine anymore or have any fruit juice the last few days before the competition, and just drink water and eat maybe high protein foods and so on, and really be very careful what you eat.
Yeah. Because of the bulk of your muscles, size of biceps, size of legs, are you more susceptible to injury? Are you less mobile than someone who does not have 21-inch arms or a 57-inch chest? Do you have to really be careful at what you do?
No, I don't have to be careful. I'm one of the fortunate ones that have always done a lot of flexibility exercises and a lot of running and other sports. But let's assume that if you would just lift weights and would get up to a 21-inch arm and weigh 240 pounds or so, I think that you would, if you get into an unusual position, or you play a sport that you haven't played before, so you are running into the possibility of injuring yourself faster than another person. Is inevitable, yes.
Yeah. There's another thing too that although I'm not really that fascinated with bodybuilding, and excuse me for that, I wonder at times when you see the gentlemen and the ladies up there posing, are you not at times susceptible to cramps because you are putting a great deal of tension on a certain number of muscles when you have a back pose or a chest pose or
Right.
something.
No, I mean, there are people that get cramps on stage, but that is not because of the flexing. That's only because there's a lack of fluid in the body, because people try to get rid of the fluid of the body the last day before competition by sweating it out in a sauna or in a steam room, or by posing a lot of times or training very hard in order to sweat all the liquid out. And then when you have a lack of fluid, you can get cramps. So you have to take potassium, which is a food supplement, the last day in order to overcome that problem.
So
But there
it's-
are people that get cramps.
Yeah, so it is very, very sophisticated in order to really be considered one of the real top echelon of your sport.
It's a science. It's incredible how much knowledge there is in order to really be good, in a way of really bringing out the definition of the muscles, the definition of the whole body, to get the symmetry, so you don't overdevelop one area of the body and have one other area maybe too skinny or so on and so forth. That's why I think it would be very interesting for people to come to one of those competitions. The great thing is, again, we have on November 1st, the World Championships coming up in Columbus, Ohio, at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium. And there people can really see what is involved to become a champion, a world champion.
Yeah, I have been around some weightlifters, not really bodybuilders, and a lot of years ago when I was in Southern California, and that's where it was very, very popular. There was somewhat of a stigma about bodybuilders at that time. Now, granted, it's been 15 years since this happened, but at that time, whenever you were around women who saw bodybuilders, they immediately went, ugh, ugh, what is that?
Well, this has totally turned around. I know, because when I came to California 12 years ago, that was still the case. And the latest survey that they have shown in one of those magazines, I don't know if it was Playboy or whatever it was, it has shown how that has changed, how now 78% of the women were favorable towards a muscular body, whereas 10 years ago it was like 23% that were favorable towards a muscular body. I think that we are now attracted much more to a different type of a look altogether, also in women, than we had 10 years ago. So those things always change. It's fashionable sometimes and sometimes not.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger, 7-time Mr. Olympia, here with us for a few minutes. We'll continue our conversation after this time out. Sports Talk here on Radio 7 with a little change of pace here. A gentleman I believe you recognize, name, face, and build, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Traveling through town from Australia on his way to Columbus, and that is certainly the roundabout way to get there, but nevertheless, one of the premier bodybuilders in this country. And whether you enjoy the sport or not, it really is gaining, I believe, in attention. Arnold, I was fortunate enough, well, I'm not really sure it's fortunate enough, but I had a teammate that played for the Cincinnati Bengals for a number of years. His name was Pat Matson, who is one of the most avid bodybuilders I've ever come across in my life. The most, and Pat was presently weighs about 200 pounds, and he played at 250. And he really wasn't a very big person. He was maybe 5'10", maybe 5'11", and probably had a natural body weight of about 180, 75 or 80, something like that. The most incredible thing about Pat Matson was not his build, which was exceptional, but the two things that impressed me about Pat Matson was, one, his endurance to pain, and two, his stamina physically. Incredible endurance to pain. Obviously, you guys, you lift heavy weights, but you also lift a medium amount of weight, if I'm not mistaken, an incredible number of times to build definition in certain muscles, and that has to be very, very painful. Not in, I don't know if you're not an athlete, I don't know how I can put it into words, but it's just the tedium and the muscle. What you explain it? I mean, the incredible pain of lifting weights, the amount of hours you guys do.
Well, the pain is there in any sport, not just in weight training. You know, it is those people who are going through the pain barrier and go beyond that, and don't get really interrupted by the pain or annoyed by the pain. Those are the ones who end up being the winners, and those are the people that are really afraid of the pain and kind of stop there when it is painful, those are the people that most likely will lose and will never go ahead. The same is in running. I mean, in running you have to push beyond. You have to go when it starts hurting and when the whole body starts coming apart. That's when you have to go another 5 miles to finish the marathon, and that is incredible pain involved there in different areas, of course, than when you train with weights. But in weights, there's a common principle that's called the forced reps. And forced repetitions means that when you do your repetitions, let's say you are able to do 10 or 15 repetitions with a particular weight, that you then don't not stop, but force out 2 or 3 more repetitions, and that will cause great pain. But you have to do that in order to take your body through a shock, which we call then again the shock system, the shocking system, and that makes then the muscle respond, because the muscle is used to the 15 repetitions, but then the next 2 the muscle is not used to, and that then the muscle responds to and makes it grow and makes it get stronger. When you get to that level, in the beginning everything responds, but when you get to 15 years of training, you have to go beyond that point.
Yeah. Is it true that you cannot build muscles until you first tear them down?
Well, no, this
or
is
something
just,
along those lines?
No, it's people always say that, but that's really not the way it works. I mean, simply the way it works is just that nutrients are being brought into the area by eating afterwards. So blood flushes through, the blood carries the nutrients to the muscle cell and to make the muscle cells really grow. And that happens in the course of 24 hours. That is why we always say you should never train the same muscle the next day. You should train the same muscle every other day, and maybe use the split routine or the double split routine, which means that you're splitting the body. You do the lower part of the body, which is the abdominals, the thighs, and the calves one day, and the chest, the back, shoulders, and arms the other day. And so this is how you split it up.
How do you work on a specific muscle? You mentioned earlier that you're looking for perfect symmetry in your body. How do you work on your inside calf muscle, or your outside thigh muscle, or your third abdominal muscle? How do you isolate a muscle like that?
Well, we have hundreds and hundreds of different exercises available, and the idea again is that those people that have the greatest knowledge in bodybuilding and in those exercises and so on are the ones that have the best chance then to develop that type of a physique that is really wanted or needed to win a competition like that. Now, for instance, we have exercises for the outer biceps, we have exercises for the lower biceps, for the higher biceps, for the inner biceps, for the outer calf or for the inner calf, and it goes on and on. The thing what you have to do is you have to have a sense of almost like a sculptor. You have to, when you look at your body when it is flexed, you have to be able to step out of your body and be critical and say the body becomes a thing, and you analyze it and you say this body now needs outer latissimus, it needs more on the triceps, but not just the triceps, the lower triceps maybe, it needs more on the forearms and so on, and then you write down those weak points, and then you write next to it the exercises that will take care of those weak points. And so this is how you reshape the body, which takes more than just a month. It takes a year, sometimes 3-4 years. You reshape the body, or what we call also resculpt the body. We just redo it all over again. And it's a very sophisticated thing, and you really have to have good knowledge over the whole field.
Did you have to do that after you went 5 years of working out an hour a day? Did you have to resculpt your body?
Well, no, I kept the body in proportions. What I had to do is I had to gain muscular size all over the body, so I had to just train everything equally as much, which means if you train the calves 20 sets of a certain repetition, you have to do the same for the biceps, the same for the triceps, and so on.
So that your body grows at the same proportion in each part.
Right.
Interesting. Can you make money? Do you win money by being Mr. Olympia, or is it more?
You win money by winning the professional contest. There was this year, for the first time ever, they had $250,000 available for professional bodybuilders to compete, which was a Grand Prix of 5 different competitions, including the Mr. Olympia contest and now the Mr. Universe contest on November 1st in Columbus. We will have $30,000 in cash prizes there. So altogether, the bodybuilders are making really good money now, but I still suggest that they should not wait for making the money of the competitions. They should use the brains by going out and utilizing their talent in other areas, regardless if it is holding seminars for people to educate other people, or if it is writing booklets, writing books, writing articles in magazines and so on. To go out and make the money in other areas also.
Yeah. You appear to be a very educated person. Did you attend college in Austria?
I attended college. I went through high school in Austria, then went for 2 years economic school in Munich, and then went to UCLA in California, and also to the University of Wisconsin, and graduated in Wisconsin. In
Are most of the
international economics and business administration.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, are most of the bodybuilders like you, or are you the exception?
Or no, the top bodybuilders like Frank Zane, for instance, has 2 degrees, one in psychology and one in education. And then Franco Colombo, like I said, is a doctor in chiropractic and is getting a doctor title in nutrition now. And Bill Pearl is a very educated person and very successful businessman. I think the top bodybuilders, and it shows that in sports, in order to be on the top, you have to be also very intelligent. You have to have really good sense of your own body. You have to figure out the psychological makeup in order to perform well. You have to be intelligent to make it to the top. Otherwise, it just doesn't work,
Okay, this is the first time we've met. Was there not a time when you suffered a very, very bad reputation? And that reputation was that had no intelligence whatsoever, maybe because of your speech pattern. Once again, from being in Southern California, when you hit the scene out there, I suppose there were a great many jealous people that said, who is this guy? What's he doing here trying to violate Southern California? Are you aware of that, or am I informing you of something that is probably totally off the wall?
No, not that I am aware of that I ever had the reputation of that. As a matter of fact, I remember that the bodybuilding itself had the reputation, what you just said. And I remember a time when I went to do the first Merv Griffin show, and Shaki Green was the guest host. He asked me a question, and in a very slow way, he says, Arnold, what time did you start training? And I said, and I gave him an answer, what time it was, and why I started training, and this and that, and about the training, and all my plans. And he then turned to me and he says, I can't believe it. And I said, what, did I say something wrong, because it was the first time I was on air, on a talk show. It was in 74. I said, I didn't know what I was saying wrong. So he says, I can't believe it. I said, what? He says, you can communicate like everybody else. He says, you can talk. So it was like a shock to him, because he had an idea of bodybuilders, maybe being slow mentally or dumb or whatever else. But I think that since then, people have realized in the media and also the general public that the majority of bodybuilders are sophisticated and intelligent.
Or no less intelligent because they're bodybuilders.
Exactly. There are, of course, idiots in the sport too. And they are in every sport, and I wish to get out of there.
Is it not true also that there are bodybuilders who are very jealous, like there is a certain clique that works out at Gold's Gym in Santa Monica, California, and they don't like anybody else coming into their area and working out at Gold's Gym in Santa Monica, California?
Very true. It is an interesting thing. I mean, that the sport is not that big yet, and there's an enormous jealousy going on within the sport. And although I have done so much, for instance, for the sport, and the reason why they have all those cash prizes now is because the sport is now popular and people are going to see it, and televised covers it and television covers it and so on. They still, for instance, had a very negative attitude about me competing in a Mr. Olympia contest. When I won the competition, from that time on, nobody talked to me anymore.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was incredible, the turnaround, and we are talking now about people that were friends of mine. Just because the fact that they didn't win, or because they were set back one position, maybe from third to fourth, or from second to third, or from first to second. And so it was really interesting to see that. So there is jealousy going on also from out-of-towners. If people come from Germany, or from Africa, or from France, or somewhere, to Gold's Gym or World Gym, I mean, that sometimes exists. I think in World Gym there's more camaraderie in general, but than in Gold's Gym.
What about this Mr. Universe contest in Columbus? Are you going to be a late entry once again, or is that a concern of the other participants?
No, I don't think it is, because I am one of the promoters of the competition, right along with Jim Lorimer, and it's one thing you don't do, although there is really no rule against it, but you don't compete in the competition that you're promoting. So I will not even think about that, and will not make a step back, because the Mr. Olympia contest is the top competition, although the Mr. Universe contest is also right up there, and we will have in Columbus the top professional bodybuilders. They're competing, the similar guys of what we had in the Mr. Olympia contest.
How many people would you expect to go to the arena in Columbus to watch you guys? What are you
Well,
expecting?
we usually have around 5 to 7,000 people watching the competition during a day, which is around 3,000 in the afternoon at the pre-judging and around 4,000 in the evening show. And so we are always sold out at the time of the show, and we have great participation, not only audience-wise, but also media-wise. And also we will have, again, like I said before, bodybuilders coming from 20 different countries, and really the top guys, and the judges are really selected again from the top people like Franco Colombo, Frank Zane, Reg Park, Bill Pearl, and so on.
Will you be one of the judges?
No, again,
A
that
promoter
will be a
cannot be a
conflict
judge?
of. Well, he can, but it looks too much like a conflict of interest, you know. By me winning in Australia, made them already say all kinds of things, how I have fixed the contest, and how those guys know me too well, and I'm too popular, and that's why I won, and all that. So if I would go and judge my own contest or would compete in my own contest, I would never hear the end of it, you know.
Interesting. I do know that the sport has become a lot more sophisticated, as now they have Mr. Short Olympia, they have Mr. Tall Olympia.
Yeah, they have now the lightweight division, the
Lightweight, yes.
heavyweight division, and all kinds of things like that. Yeah, it does rules change every year. You know, this year, for instance, they had again just one weight class in a Mr. Olympia contest because some people complained about having two weight classes, and so they made one. Next year, it could easily be two again. Who knows?
Is there a particular advantage for a bodybuilder being 6'2" as opposed to being 5'10"?
I think there's an advantage, yes. But I mean, the fact is that in the last 5 years, the smaller guys and the lighter guys have won the competitions and have dominated bodybuilding, regardless if you're talking about Chris Dickinson or if you're talking about Frank Zane or Franco Colombo. They all are below 190 body weight. And it's really interesting because in my days, when I was competing in the early 70s, for instance, all the guys weighed 240, 250, 230, and so on. So it really changed.
Yeah. Listen, I appreciate you coming by. I know you got lots to do and everything, and I appreciate you taking about 35 minutes with us to fill us in. This guy is one of the best-known bodybuilders there is in America, and Merv Griffin said so. So how can I argue?
That's right. Yeah.
Best of luck on your competition. Once again, give us a plug where they get tickets if they're interested in bodybuilding for, what is it, Mr. Universe in Columbus, November 1st?
Yeah, Professional Mr. Universe contest on November 1st at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium, and they can get the tickets through the central ticket office at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium.
Okay, that's 90 miles north of here, but I'm sure there are a lot of bodybuilders here in Cincinnati who will probably go up there to just get a chance at you in a short-sleeve shirt, seeing you in a short-sleeve shirt.
That's right, yes.
All right, this is Sports Talk on Radio 7, and that is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Thank you very much for bringing him. We will return with more of our program after this timeout.